what Apple should be doing as a company that provided public services. And the last one of the items is that you must impute your product to people. The product must be imputing. What does to impute mean? Anybody know what the word impute means? It means attribute a certain quality to a person or an individual which they themselves either don't have or don't think they have. Right? In theological terms, it's the component of grace that I talk about. You impute righteousness, or you impute perfection, or you impute beauty, you impute this and that and the other to the person. And so one of the philosophies was that the product imputes the sense of worthiness or importance to the individual. And it allows them to feel better about themselves. Now, is that a residue of privilege?
Yes.
In a certain sense it is, isn't it?
Or a residue of lack of privilege or something.
All right, I'll just throw that out. Okay? All right. Well, so Liberace came from not a wealthy background. It was like a common background, right? And then through whatever he did, he became enormously wealthy and affluent. And so, well, you should continue it from here. Finish it. How do those two things fit together?
He didn't come from privilege. His parents were immigrants. So he didn't...
He was like a self-made man,
Yeah.
right? Well, how was it that he was self-made? What allowed him to be self-made?
Success, intelligence, luck.
He almost reconstituted the concept of privilege, at least for himself.
Through what?
Glamour, I don't know. The way that...
What?
Playing music.
Yeah, like... his
Through music.
hard work.
But what else? His own personality, yeah? What about his personality? What about his... How was he a success?
He was, like, completely original. That's one thing.
Well, what about him was original?
Everything.
Really?
No.
Authentically fake.
But you see, the truth is that there's an irony in that. Was he authentically fake?
Maybe not. Well, I mean...
I don't think so.
What do we mean by fake?
Trying to be something that he was not.
Oh.
That's what he was, actually.
So he was just authentic.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't...
Or,
Yeah.
like, either he was that way or he was self-conscious that he was presenting himself in that way.
Well, okay.
No.
What is it?
But if he was self-conscious, it was like completely buried.
Yes, but what does the essay make? What does the essay claim about him? Now we're approaching a topic that is generally not discussed in the classroom.
Were you talking about the closet
Absolutely.
It says-
Democratizing?
Yeah, that.
Yes.
Liberace had been a less self-confident figure, a more fragile and self-pitying soul. It would be all too easy now to cast him in a loser's role as a tragic and embattled sexual outlaw.
An embattled sexual outlaw.
I think that statement about demanding simplicity and an open secret, like separating the private and public, or like creating a concept which separates that. I think that's like, I think probably a lot of his success. He was a visionary. Like he envisioned something very convinced, had a lot of conviction in his vision.
Where does that conviction come from? You're onto something. That it's important because Hickey says that it was the beginning of a new era. Yes,
Right.
it was a
Right.
historical
I
moment.
think it comes from frustration, personally.
I'm not sure. There's nothing that I've ever read or that I've ever seen in him or anybody's ever said that would.
But I feel the same way sometimes about Wilde.
There is a similarity there, but there's a difference. Does everyone know the story about Oscar Wilde? Right?
I think it's at the same time the highest demonstration of boldness, but mixed in with a lot of fear.
What Liberace? I don't think so, and
I think
actually, I
that's-
don't think that was the case with Wilde, because he sacrificed everything. Everything. I mean, his open relationship with Risley, and the abandonment of the children that he loved and his wife, which he actually did love, and then that horrible trial. He didn't back away from that. I mean, that's documented, is it not? The text of all of that? I mean, it's profoundly disturbing. But Liberace is something different.
Maybe he just started with the concept of freedom and then suppressed all of the pushback that he got and just kind of ran with it.
Well, because I don't think that he allowed that to factor in anything. And the authenticity refers to Liberace as an individual, as a human being. He was very conscious of whatever he felt he was, of his homosexuality or whatever. And he did not hide it, although he didn't publicize it either.
But I think he tried to symbolize it.
Yes, he
I
did. He
think
symbolized it because
That's
out
what I
of
don't
what?
like.
Out of what?
Dissent and cultural disaffection.
I think it's divisive.
It says on page 59, just that about Wilde.
Well, it says
You
like
think his behavior was ultimately decisive,
Divisive.
divisive,
I think symbolizing,
divisive, or whatever?
symbolizing something that it's like taking things that aren't related and like combining them into one image that represents an idea or something. And
Well, yes, but what did Liberace do? He was himself.
But it says that like every time he was attacked for his sexuality or whatever, because people were not particularly accepting back then, he like responded by, dressing and acting in even more kind of like extreme
Yeah.
flamboyant.
Yes,
way,
but
like,
never,
Yeah.
Engaged.
never
He
really.
did it. I feel like. I mean, I don't know enough about it, but I feel like he just did this for entertainment purposes. Like, a lot of it is just for show. And
No, I think he was trying to express, who he was, but like the way things
but
were,
like for in a
it-
way, but in a
Don't you think
like in
when
a
he's
very obvious way, so that people would recognize it enough, so that people would recognize it, but it's still just a show, but for that purpose.
Yes, but
Just
isn't
had
he
to go to that extreme?
yeah, wasn't he
people to-
using the show
Yeah.
to say that I am this way, and I don't have to, I don't have to tell you I'm this way. I'm demonstrating that through my entertainment and my shows, but I'm revealing to you who I actually am.
And And realness versus fakeness has more to do with the audience's perception than anything that he was trying to.
Exactly. And so what did the audience do? They realized what he actually was. Yes? Most people, everyone knew. Everyone knew that. And so one of the things that Liberace tried to communicate was that it was okay. And he did. He started a revolution. He is historically important because of what he did about the conception that he had of himself. His extreme self-confidence. And that was able to communicate something that Liberace felt intrinsic about himself. Now, you can debate that or whatever. And I think that also has to do with it has to ultimately do with the notion of the properties of human mental activity, which are inescapable. But I think the victory for Liberace was that he was able, in his fakery and his entertainment, to create the confidence and the authenticity of who he actually was without any kind of, banner waving, although you might consider the entertainment as a banner waving, but something that was authentic. That, I think, is the point that Hickey is trying to make, right?
But isn't who you are, but if he was expressing who he was expressing an idea of who he was. Like, if his show has nothing, if his show is entertainment and blown up, that doesn't actually have anything to do with how he is as a person.
Well, it did.
I mean, especially as it relates to who he's interested in.
Okay, now, this is the point at which you have to remember what happened in the previous essay. And this is what the connection is. What does he say in Pontormo's Rainbow? And we'll end with this. There is a difference in what we want to see and what we want to see represented. Is that clear? The object about this is that there's a difference, a huge difference, between what we want to see and what we want to see represented. And in the previous essay, he uses the idea of cartoons and then connects it with color. We do not want to see dogs or animals being abused, but we want to see represented something like that in a cartoon that we know is not real, but is communicating something profoundly real. This is why this essay follows the Pontormo essay, and it has directly to do with those concepts. And there are ways of communicating truth, which is the function of art, I guess, that revolves around what we want to see and what we want to see represented are really two different things. And it's the way in which certain information has to be presented in order to communicate something that is actual and authentic. So it turns out that the representation itself is an aspect of authenticity, authentic fakery, rather than fake authenticity.
Isn't it fair to say that there would be a profound difference between how someone like David Hickey or someone else might interpret that representation? Like, I don't know, like, when things are represented, there's not a truth that exists between, like, there's not a truth that's being expressed.
Yeah, I think there is.
But I mean, not everyone would experience the same truth.
Exactly. They relate it to their own whatever concoction of internalization they have taken. However, there is something that does go underneath that. And those are the things that bind all human beings together. The process of representation is the same. What is represented is not the same. But what is the same is what you want represented and what you actually want to see. Those are almost universally the same thing.
So if someone wants to see a certain idea represented, then wouldn't the
Yep.
representation be tailored to that?
Yeah, no, but you see, that's not what the work of art is trying to communicate. All works of art are trying to communicate something that is below the surface, we're not even aware of. And so that is why he always makes the point that you create the work of art. It's obviously created by a human being with some kind of human import in a very deep level. And you throw it, you send it out into the world. And if it is authentic, then there will be a message. It might not be the same message that I get from it or that you get from it, but there is content in it that is, and I hate to use this word, but I'll use it because it's such a cheerful way to end, universal. Right? There's a universal property to that. And when art seeks to intellectualize that concept, then you're definitely off the mark. And it ceases to have that internal resonating principle in its representation. So, I hope you have a great holiday. And I think about things that are, make your life about things that are important, not things that are trivial or what the world is telling you to think. The whole idea is to be who you are and then to find out why you are that way, right? And it could be that you're not being who you are. But if you jump on the bandwagon, you know, chances are that's going to fall off a 1,000-foot ravine and you'll be unrecoverable. That's my cryptic message for today and this holiday season. Right? And the entrance to the temple at Delphi, an inscription in Greek, of course, not in Swedish. And it says, "Know thyself." I'll see you next semester. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good holiday.